Hey, what's up everybody? It's Pokiwizard coming at you with another VGC video. I'm so excited. Today we are just going to be going over and ranking every single Dynamax move. There are 19 Dynamax moves. There are one for each 18 types, and then there's two normal moves, Max Guard being the second. And that's where we're going to go ahead and start, right after I give you a brief overview of what we're doing here. What's up guys? Pokiwizard from the future just coming at you to say that when I recorded this video, my wizardly aura was much too much for my chroma key to delete my green screen and leave me immaculately beautiful like I am now. So hope you guys don't mind it, and I hope you guys enjoy the video. So everybody's familiar with tier lists right here. I've got 5 different sections that I can place these into: overpowered, extremely useful, useful, does something, and dog water. I'm going to be straight up with you guys right off the bat. Probably none of these moves are going to go anywhere lower than useful, and I'm not even 100% sure if I'm going to be able to place anything under extremely useful, because Dynamax moves inherently are kind of broken, you know? Not all of them are like just insanely amazing, but some of them are just completely overpowered, and most of them are extremely useful. So mainly we're just going to be going over what each one of them does, and I think that it'll be, good for all of us to review. Maybe we'll catch something that we didn't already know. So let's go ahead and get started with Max Guard. I'm going to go ahead, before we even get into what Max Guard does, and put it into overpowered. Everybody knows that Max Guard, just the ultimate form of Protect, that's overpowered. But let's go ahead and just read into the deets of this move. So Max Guard is a normal type move. Basically, when your Pokemon Dynamaxes, if it has a status move, it turns into Max Guard. That includes Protect and all other status type moves. Now, basically, it protects the user from attacks, and it has a priority of +4. Now, this move, really interestingly, there is only, obviously there are moves, we already went through a whole list of moves that bypass Protect and Max Guard, right? That was our last video. I'll go ahead and link that down in the description for y'all to go check that out. So, moves like Curse, stuff like that, that's going to hit through. But there's only one type of attacking move that hits through Max Guard, to my knowledge. There's 2 kinds of it, but it's basically the same move, and that's Urshifu's G-Max move. We're going to go ahead and be doing the Gigantamax moves next week, so stay tuned for that. But other than that, Max Guard is just completely overpowered, right? You just get to stall out for 1 turn and nobody gets to hit you. I think that's really interesting. And especially with stuff like coaching going through that, I think that is super, super cool. So you get to Max Guard your Dynamax Mon and then coach it, stuff like that. That's super overpowered. Now let's go ahead and get into the next move. That is Max Strike. So Max Strike is the normal type damage inflicting Dynamax move. It deals damage and lowers the target's speed. Now Max Strike in general, some really good Pokemon get this, obviously. And the one that comes off the top of my head is if you have a Pokemon that learns Hyper Beam, like Porygon Z for example, you get a base 150 power Max Strike move, and that is really, really good. And that's before we're even talking about, Stab, or, any other modifiers like putting a Silk Scarf to boost normal type moves. It's really, really strong. Now, the other thing that Max Strike does, obviously, is it lowers the target's speed. So that is obviously extremely useful. So we've put it into the extremely useful tier. Anything that, makes you faster or makes your opponent slower, that can be completely game-changing, right? I think that's really amazing. Now, Max Knuckle is our next move we're going over. This is the fighting type Max move. And the move deals damage and increases the attack of the user and its teammates. Now, Max Knuckle is interesting because they kind of nerfed it. It's a really good move. Obviously, its effect is amazing, because if you have an ally Pokemon that has a great attack stat and you can boost that off of your move, that's incredible, while you're also, giving yourself a boost. But if I remember correctly, the strongest Max Knuckle move is only like, I think it's base 95 power, base 90 power, it's one of those two. And it doesn't get stronger than that. Obviously, if you use it 2 times in a row, you're getting your boost onto that move again. So, you got +1 max knuckle the second time you use it, and then +2 the third time you use it. But, I think that that nerf, it is significant. Do I think that it's only useful? No, because now if it only affected the Dynamax Mon, absolutely, but it raises both of your Pokemon stats in doubles, right? So I think that it has to go under extremely useful, right? I think that that is really, really good. Now, our next move, we're getting into our very first move that calls on a terrain, right? So Max Overgrowth is the grass type Max move, and it deals damage and summons grassy terrain for 5 turns. Now, it's really important to go over what grassy terrain does. So, grassy terrain creates a low-lying grassy field lasting 5 turns that restores the HP of grounded Pokemon each turn by 1/16 of their maximum HP. So it's basically like built-in leftovers for any Pokemon touching the ground. The power of grass-type moves also increases by 50% while in effect, and the moves Earthquake, Magnitude, and Bulldoze have in power. So I think that this is going to be the first controversial one, because I think that people are going to say that it is not as good as I'm about to place it. But I think that Max Overgrowth is overpowered. I think that that is absolutely incredible, especially when you pair it with really good Pokemon like Rillaboom. Oh my gosh. Obviously Rillaboom calls on grassy terrain when it comes in already, but I just think that Max Overgrowth, giving you that grassy terrain HP proc, I think that is really, really good. And then it, lessens the damage of ground moves. That's really good, right? That's really, really good. I think I think it's overpowered. Anything that calls on terrain, I think is just extremely good. It's going to be difficult to not put them into overpowered. Yeah. So I'm trying to think of any reason that I could knock that down. It just does so much, all the weather and all the terrain moves, they do so much. Well, let's just keep moving right along here. Our next move that we're going to be reviewing is another move that calls on terrain, and that is Max Lightning. Max Lightning is the electric type Dynamax move. It deals damage and it summons electric terrain for 5 turns. Now, electric terrain creates a low-lying electric field lasting 5 turns that prevents grounded Pokemon from falling asleep. The power of electric type moves also increases by 50% while in effect. Grounded Pokemon are simply we don't need to read that. We already know about that. So nothing that I didn't already know reading that. Electric terrain, I think that is extremely useful. Possibly, how am I going to put Max Overgrowth into overpowered though, and not put Max Lightning? Because the thing is that it increases the power of your electric type moves, and that works really, really well in a lot of different situations. Obviously, Yeah, we got to put Max Lightning into overpowered right along with Max Overgrowth because it brings in the terrain. One thing that people use electric terrain for a lot, besides just boosting the power of their Mon's moves, is like, for instance, if there's an Umbreon in the field and that Umbreon just yawned you, any Pokemon using Yawn, if you can pull out Max Lightning on the next turn and you're touching the terrain, obviously, that Pokemon is not going to go to sleep even though it got yawned. So I think that is really, really good. Yeah, definitely got to stick it into the overpowered, right? I think so. All right. Well, the next move that we got going on here is Max Darkness. Now, this one is pretty cool. Lots of awesome mons get it, obviously. And so Max Darkness is the dark type Max move. And it deals damage and lowers the target's special defense. Now, the thing about this move is that a lot of the Pokemon that get it are special attackers, so that stacks really, really well, right? Now, so let's say you're using Max Darkness on a Moltres, a Galarian Moltres. It's going to hit you even harder on the next turn because you just lowered the special defense of a special, and by using a special attacking move. I think that's really, really powerful. I don't think that it's overpowered because that's all it does. So I think that we're going to have to put that under extremely useful. Yeah, I think that's what we got to do. Because, it does stack really well with the Pokemon that actually get this move and use it. But I don't think that we can put it into overpowered. But yeah, let's keep moving. Okay, so next move is Max Geyser. Max Geyser is the water type Dynamax move. It deals damage and it summons heavy rain for 5 turns. Now, automatically, my mind just goes straight to, we got to put this into overpowered. Weather does so much for a team in this game, right? So not only does the rain lessen the power of fire type moves, it increases the power of water type moves, and there are tons of Pokemon that, for instance, Swift Swimmers, Kingdra, Barraskewda, Seismitoad, all kinds of Pokemon get Swift Swim, Ludicolo. And so when you get the rain up, that Pokemon is definitely almost always going to be going first the next turn. And that speed control is so reliable, and not only is it getting to go first, but that rain is boosting the power of your already same type attack bonus Dynamax move on the next turn. So that is crazy overpowered if you're using it correctly. Anything that calls weather, super, super overpowered in my opinion. What else can we say about that? I think that's just what it is, right? And next up on the list, Max Flare. Obviously, Max Flare is dog water. No, I'm just kidding, guys. It's overpowered. You're summoning the sun for 5 turns. Okay, so Max Flare is the fire-type Dynamax move, and that's what it does. It deals damage, and it summons the harsh sunlight for 5 turns. It's basically drought with extra damage. I think it's freaking awesome. It's one of the coolest things that you can do in the game. It's same with the Swift Swimmers. There's Chlorophyll Mons, Maractus, Venusaur, Lilligant. Lilligant's Chlorophyll, right? And all of a sudden your grass-type Pokemon are moving really quick, and they're countering the opposing water types that are being brought out to, extinguish your fire Pokemon that's using Max Flare, So I think that is crazy overpowered, obviously. And yeah, this weather is just so important. That's why we see so much of it in formats like just, Series 9, and weather is almost always a big deal in VGC, right? It's been a really long time since it wasn't, so let's keep moving here. Our next move is the second speed control move. It's the flying type Dynamax move, Max Airstream. This move deals damage, and it raises the speed of the user and its teammates. Now, this one in particular, I think, is really fantastic because instead of slowing down the other Pokemon, it speeds you up, right? So, when I slow down the opposing Pokemon, the opponent has the option to withdraw that Pokemon and then eliminate what I just did, right? Now, obviously, they're probably not getting a free switch in, but that kind of still puts them on the back foot, but you're giving your opponent the option to eliminate the stat drop that you put on them. When you add stat drops to your side, I think that's far superior. So we're going to put this into extremely useful. I don't think it's overpowered, because if you are just relying on Max Airstream, a lot of times you're kind of dead in the water. Most Mons that get access to this move and use it frequently use it on turn 1, and then they go for a different stab move. Defiant Thunderous, Weakness Policy, Galarian Moltres, all kinds of examples. Zapdos. Galarian Zapdos is always wanting to get an Airstream off so that it can outspeed the next turn. So that's what I'm thinking there. That's what I am thinking. Can't really... Yeah, and you're not going to probably withdraw your Pokemon that's boosted, right? So I just think that it gives you a lot more coverage than, doing a stat drop to the opposing side. I would rather raise my stats than drop yours, if that makes any sense. Of course, Max Airstream and then getting Trick Roomed on is, that's probably no good, but, Max Strike, you're running into the same problem. You're slowing them down, and then they Trick Room, and then obviously they're going to be moving first. So that's really interesting. Next on our list, we have Max Rockfall. Now, Max Rockfall is the Rock-type Dynamax move. It deals damage and summons a Sandstorm for 5 turns. Now, Sandstorm is really, really cool. It increases your Pokemon's special defenses, right? And it creates buffet damage on every kind of Pokemon that doesn't resist it. And so you see sand cores being run a lot. Things like Sandaconda, Tyranitar, Excadrill, all these Pokemon that can withstand and benefit from the Sandstorm. I think that's really cool. Excadrill gets Sand Rush, obviously, so all of a sudden you're dealing with like a speed stat of over 600, I believe, on a Sand Rushed Excadrill. That's really powerful, and not only that, it's got a special defense boost. So I think that is gotta be overpowered because it summons your own weather that has buffet potential, and a lot of times it's going to be, negating other weathers, like that might be causing you a problem. So I think that is really, really good. In addition, lots of different Pokemon get rock moves that, that you wouldn't even think about having it. So I think that that's got to be placed in overpowered. And so our next one is another move that calls forth a terrain. This is Max Starfall. Max Starfall is the Fairy-type Dynamax move. It deals damage and it summons Misty Terrain for 5 turns. Misty Terrain is absolutely crazy. Before I even read this, we're going to take Max Starfall and we're going to put it only underneath Max Guard in overpowered because Misty Terrain is so powerful. What it does is it creates a low-lying mist that lasts 5 turns that protects all grounded Pokemon from status conditions, including confusion. So that is broken, okay? Like, that is a really incredible move. I think that being able to stop status conditions is, that's why we got Max Lightning up here in overpowered, and that only stops sleep. And so Max Starfall stops all of the status conditions as long as your Pokemon is grounded. And not only that, it halves the power of Dragon-type moves while in effect. Everybody knows that Dragon-type moves are some of the most powerful and just broken, busted moves in the game. Freaking Dragon Energy. We'll get into Max Whirlwind later, obviously, but these are inherently busted moves. Draco Meteor. If you can have the damage from those, that is amazing. So Max Starfall is going into overpowered, only under Max Guard. All right. Super interesting so far. Remember I told you guys, all of these moves are just inherently really good, right? So we're probably not going to be putting any of these lower than extremely useful. Now, next move on the list, we got Max Steel Spike. Max Steel Spike is obviously the Steel-type Max move. It deals damage and it raises the defense of the user and its teammates. Now, that is obviously really good. You being able to stack your own defense stats, it can be so powerful and snowball a game really quickly for you. One of my absolute favorite mons to use is like Assault Vest Metagross. And, if you can get 2 Max Steel Spikes off and then a Max Quake, that Metagross all of a sudden becomes like almost unkillable because it has ×2 special defense boosts and ×2 defense boosts. Like, they need a crit, and if you have a screen user on your team and you get this off twice, how are they going to get you without a crit? You're like forcing them to get amazing RNG to beat you. I think that this move is really, really fantastic. I think that we're going to keep it in extremely useful, and we're going to put it just above Max Strike and just under Max Airstream. The next move is Max Flutterby. Now, Max Flutterby is the Bug-type Dynamax move. It deals damage and lowers the target's special attack. Now, the thing about Max Flutterby is that you, never see it. It's not very common, but I still think that it can be extremely useful, right? But the thing about this move is that bug types inherently, bug types can be insanely good, right? But if you're using a Dynamax bug type that isn't Volcarona, like, you're kind of putting yourself on the back foot. There are just so many weaknesses, right? And a lot of the Pokemon that can take out bug users are physical, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, but so like lowering a special attack or lowering a target's special attack, I just think that this one, I mean, we'll put it, you know what, guys? Maybe this is controversial. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about here. Totally possible. Let me know down in the comments if you guys disagree. But we're going to put Max Flutterby in useful. I just, whenever I've used it, I've always found it to be super underwhelming. And there are all the bug Pokemon that get this move generally have other moves that are going to be better for you to be using. Like G-Max moves. Like, if you're using Scentiscorch or Orbeetle, those guys have better moves than Max Flutterby to use, right? So I think that we're going to just keep it in useful. And that, I think that's going to be our only one ranked underneath the top 2 tiers. Do I stand by what I said? Yeah, I do. All right, the next move on our list is the last move that calls forward weather, and that's Max Hailstorm. It's the Ice-type Dynamax move. It deals damage, and it summons Hail for 5 turns. Now, Hail is super useful for almost all the same reasons that Sandstorm is useful, but so let me think about this. So, Hail obviously buffets Pokemon, it breaks focus sashes, and it creates an environment where like Blizzard is an 100% accurate move, stuff like that. I don't think that Hail is as useful as the other weather moves. And I actually think that this is the only weather calling move that we're going to put in extremely useful. Now, Max Hailstorm itself, is incredibly, incredibly useful as a stab damage attack against dragon types and grass types. So I don't think that we can put it at the bottom here, right? But I think that we can put it underneath Max Steel Spike and above Max Strike, right? I think that that's reasonable. And you know what? We're going to go ahead and move Max Darkness above Max Knuckle. Yeah, I think that's reasonable. And that's really all I have to say about it, right? I mean, I'm sure that there are other things that Hail causes that are slipping my that Hail brings into effect that are slipping my mind, but I mean, it is super useful for breaking focus sashes. I will say that's whenever I'm using Max Hailstorm, that's almost always why I'm using it. Unless it's like a stab, super effective move on a dragon type or a grass type. Like, that's usually when I'm using Max Hailstorm. All right, and Max Mindstorm is next. This is the very last move on here, unless I'm mistaken, that calls forth a terrain. And the thing about Max Mindstorm, it is the... Oh, interesting. On Pokemon DB here, it says under the effects, Max Overgrowth is a Dynamax move. This is, so obviously there's a mistake on this page, but this is the Psychic Dynamax move. It deals damage, and it summons Psychic Terrain for 5 turns. Now, Psychic Terrain is absolutely incredible. It's definitely the most misplayed terrain out there. Like, it causes you to make misplays, right? Especially when... it's just so, in today's VGC, we rely on Prankster and Triage and all this other stuff so much. Psychic Terrain negates all of that. Okay, so it creates a low-lying psychic field lasting 5 turns that prevents grounded Pokemon from being hit by high-priority moves, such as Quick Attack or Sucker Punch. The power of Psychic-type moves also increases while in effect. So, this is broken, okay? So, not only do you not get to hit me with priority moves anymore, you are also getting hit by usually stab boosted, super effective psychic type moves that are now boosted by Max Mindstorm. Like, that's absolutely broken, That's why Indeedee Hat is so prevalent in the meta. It's just incredibly powerful. Now, obviously, Max Mindstorm is usually being used after Indeedee's already brought Psychic Surge forward. So the terrain's already there, but even then, the Mindstorm is being boosted off the terrain, and you can't get priority moved. I just think that is so incredibly powerful that I'm going to put it. Do I think that Misty Terrain or Psychic Terrain is better? I think in today's meta that Psychic Terrain is better. I think that you are getting hit by priority moves more often than status moves like Will-O-Wisp, Thunderwave, stuff like that. So I think that Max Mindstorm actually goes above Max Starfall into the overpowered category. But that, I mean, that's really good. I think that's just amazing. So let's move on to our next move. We are almost done here, guys. We're closing it out. Max Ooze. It's the poison type Dynamax move. It deals damage and increases the special attack of the user and its teammates. Now, this move is basically Max Knuckle, but for, special attack instead of attack. So I think that we have to put this, I'm going to put this underneath Max Darkness and above Max Knuckle, right? The most common Pokemon that you see nowadays running Max Ooze is Venusaur with, Torkoal as its teammate. So it can move first, get that Vine Lash up. If it gets to live 2 more turns, then it gets to Max Ooze turn 2 to raise its special attack and then hit really hard on that third attack. I think that's really good. I don't think it's overpowered. And a lot of times, especially when you're running Venusaur, you're not going to get more than 2 turns, say, with Venusaur, if your opponent knows what they're doing. So I think that Max Ooze is obviously extremely useful, but I don't think, and especially in that context with Venusaur, because you're raising, not only are you raising Venusaur's special attack, but you're raising Torkoal's special attack, and Venusaur is always outspeeding Torkoal, so you're raising that special attack on Torkoal, and then it gets to move. So, I mean, obviously there are way more times where Max Ooze is coming into play, right? But I think that that's the most common in the meta right now. Correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, I stand by that placement. I think it's extremely useful. I think it's more useful than Max Knuckle in a lot of cases. So yeah, bing bang boom. That's what I think. Now, our next move is Max Phantasm. Max Phantasm is really interesting because there are a lot of ghost types that, obviously get Max Phantasm. But in my opinion, not very many benefit from them. A lot of ghost types are special attackers, But Max Phantasm, what it does, it's the ghost type Dynamax move, obviously, and it deals damage and lowers the target's defense. So the best way to utilize this is to use this on a physical attacking Pokemon. Okay, so what physical ghost types do we have? Golurk, Dragapult, Mimikyu, I guess Aegislash, all of these mons would benefit from lowering the target's defense so they can hit them again for a, even more powerful move on the next turn. But, it kind of limits ghost types, in my opinion, kind of limits ghost types. Like, unless you have a special attacking ghost type using Max Phantasm, right? It is stab, but it's not going to stack your power on the next turn. So you need a physical attacker ally Pokemon that can be hitting this Pokemon for, great physical attacks. I think that's really interesting. So, I'm inclined to put this under useful, but the thing is that Dragapult and Mimikyu are really good, right? They're really good. So I think that we're going to keep this in extremely useful, but I'm going to put it underneath Max Knuckle. Ooh, I'm feeling controversial right now. Feeling super controversial. Yeah. All right, well, that's where I put it. If you guys disagree, let me know down in the comments why. Very excited to hear what you guys have to say. Now, we only got 2 left. The second to last one, it's one of my favorites. I love ground typing. Max Quake is the ground type Dynamax move. It deals damage and it increases the special defense of the user and its teammates. That is super good. And a lot of times, like for instance, we were talking about max Rockfall earlier, Sandstorm increases your special defense, right? Imagine this, right? You have Tyranitar and Excadrill on the board. Your Tyranitar has brought around Sandstorm, right? And you already have a special defense boost. And your Excadrill has Sand Rush, so it has a speed boost. And then you Dynamax one of those and go for a Max Quake, and you both get a special defense boost off of that. Like, that is an incredible, incredible core right there. You know, that's why it's in so much use. And so I think Max Quake, I don't think it's overpowered, but I think that we can put it up here. I actually think, because there are so many special attackers in the meta right now, right? That we can even put it underneath Max Airstream, because Max Quake getting a special defense boost off right now is just, it's so hot. It's really good, you know? That's just amazing. Yeah, what else can I say about Max Quake other than it has, in my opinion, the coolest animation. I think it's really awesome. It's just really epic, and it feels amazing, you know, when you get a good one off. Now, I will say, you know, flying types are immune to Earthquake. We really haven't talked about immunities in this list, right? So we'll talk about that in a minute once we finish up here. But that definitely, you know, plays into where these might be ranked. But yeah, Max Quake, I think it's extremely useful. I think it's the most extremely useful move in the extremely useful tier right now. And yeah, last move, Max Wormwind. This is the dragon type Dynamax move. It deals damage and it lowers the target's attack. Now, this is a really interesting move. I think that I could be wrong about this, but I think that there are significantly more special attacking Dynamax Mons than there are physical attacking right now. I mean, maybe it's more even than I think, but you know, you really see a lot of special attacking Dynamaxers. And so Max Wormwind is, you know, it's really good because lowering attack, that's great, right? But I think that all of these are better than Max Wormwind until we get down to Max Ooze and Max Knuckle. I think that Max Wormwind goes right in between Max Ooze and Max Knuckle. Now, the Pokemon that get access to this move obviously are Dragon types, which are incredibly overpowered typing, but I don't think that Max Wormwind as a whole is overpowered, right? I think it's extremely useful, and I think that all these other moves have a better use than Max Wormwind. Now, you might disagree with me. You might think that I'm crazy for saying that, but I think that that's true. I think that that's true. Now, this actually brings up a really great point that I just, you know, talked about a little bit, is immunities. Now, a lot of these moves can be stopped, right? So, Max Wormwind, if, you know, one of the fairies has Follow Me, or they swap in a fairy into the slot that you're Max Wormwinding, you're being canceled out. Same with Max Quake. Max Quake can be canceled out by, you know, swapping in a flying type. Or maybe Togekiss just used Follow Me and you don't get to Max Quake anymore because Togekiss is part flying. Let's see, what else? What else has immunities? You know, Max Mindstorm is dark types are immune to psychic types. So if you can read a Max Mindstorm coming off and you can get a dark type into that slot, it's going to nullify that. So, you know, actually, with that in mind, I think that Max Starfall has to go above Max Mindstorm, right? Yeah. And then obviously, you know, Max Phantasm can be normal types are immune to ghost types. I've actually seen that quite a bit. Out of all of these, I think Max Quake and Max Phantasm are the most easily readable. But, you know, Max Wormwind too. Max Wormwind, you know, some of the fairies get Follow Me, and they're good swap-in options on a dragon type. So I think that, you know, you just got to be mindful. I'm not going to change any of the other rankings here, but you just got to be mindful about the immunities. And yeah, guys, that's all 19 Dynamax moves ranked. Keep in mind, this is just my opinion. But I stick by my list here. I think I got a good list, and I went over everything in somewhat detail. Next week, we're going to be ranking all of the Gigantamax moves, which is, going to be way more. I believe there's 35 of those. But that's going to be super fun because there's some really interesting ones that when I was looking at the list, I was like, dang, Kingler's got a cool Dynamax move. So, yeah, thanks so much. If you made it to the end of this video, I really, really appreciate you guys hanging out with me, spending time, maybe doing your dishes while this was going on, doing your chores. That's what I'm always doing when I'm watching VGC content. My name's Pokiwizard. It would mean so much to me if you guys subscribed to the channel and liked the video to help me out, get that algorithm boosted, and I'll see you guys very soon. I'm really looking forward to making another one of these. I have a lot of fun with them, so thanks so much once again for making it to the end, and yeah, I got so much love for y'all. Have a great rest of your day.